I'm uncertain how much time has passed while I kept this inside, but if I remain quiet now, I risk losing you permanently. So please, give me just these next few moments. I assure you, these words are meant for you. Perhaps this represents our final opportunity. For such an extended period, I've held these thoughts within myself, wordlessly, noiselessly, almost frightened to voice them, not because they lacked significance, but precisely because their meaning ran too deep. There exists an instant in every partnership, an instant when you abruptly sense time accelerating beyond your readiness. You gaze at your beloved and recognize that without speaking now, the opportunity may vanish forever. That terror, the dread of losing someone not through destiny but through remaining unspoken, that's what compelled me here now. I've been responsible for postponing, responsible for imagining someday, responsible for assuming love could halt time when time never halts for love. Recently, something occurred, something minor yet profound, a hushed instant that jolted me into awareness. A glance, an exchange, a sensation that revealed I couldn't maintain my silence any longer. So now I'm expressing myself, not with arrogance, not with assurance, but with a spirit finally courageous enough to reveal itself. This represents my admission, and I'm voicing it before the moment passes. Quietness, individuals assume it's vacant. Yet reality shows that quietness carries substance, occasionally heavier than speech, heavier than errors, heavier than sorrow itself. For years, I bore that burden without recognizing it. I previously assumed determination could remedy everything, that achievement could occupy the voids I lacked time to acknowledge. I convinced myself that strain was fleeting, that the extended evenings, the time constraints, the perpetual rushing ahead were merely elements of the path. What I failed to perceive was how determination gradually constructs barriers, not noisy barriers, not hostile ones, but gentle, hushed obstacles that expand incrementally. One ignored notification, one delayed discussion, one "I'll speak with you soon," one "I'm occupied presently," one instance too exhausted to hear, one instance too overwhelmed to sense. Then abruptly a year has vanished, then 2, then 5. You don't detect the separation when you're racing, but the individual remaining stationary experiences every stride you take away. I didn't intend to separate. I didn't intend to create the feeling that she existed alongside me rather than together with me. Yet that's the nature of quietness, it doesn't request authorization. It simply expands. The reality is, countless things should have been voiced. Numerous instances where my spirit murmured, "Express it to her. Express your fear. Express your weariness. Express your continued need for her. Express that she holds greater importance than the reality you're attempting to construct." Yet I remained silent because I believed strength equaled quietness. I believed love equaled persistence. I believed she possessed that knowledge already. I believed time would always remain available. Within that quietness, unvoiced emotions transformed into separation. Separation transformed into uncertainty. Uncertainty transformed into suffering. Suffering she never warranted. The perilous aspect of unvoiced emotions is their permanence, they merely locate darker hiding spaces. They transform into inquiries: does his love remain? Do I still hold significance? Why has his gaze changed from before? Why does losing him feel inevitable even with his physical presence? Then one day, I witnessed that inquiry in her gaze, a hushed heartache she wasn't verbalizing. A gentleness transitioning toward acceptance. A love gradually, quietly surrendering. One particular instant existed, minor, uncomplicated, yet it disturbed something within me. She occupied the opposite chair at our table, her fingers surrounding a teacup already cooled. She raised her gaze, and for the initial time, her vision didn't pursue me. It didn't attempt interpretation. It didn't anticipate me. It simply appeared weary, not furious, not let down, merely weary in a manner suggesting, "I cannot continue loving for both of us." That's when understanding struck me. The terror I'd been outpacing had ultimately arrived. I recognized I wasn't combating time constraints. I wasn't struggling against strain. I wasn't forfeiting time. I was forfeiting her, not because our love had perished, but because I'd ceased nurturing it, because I'd permitted the quietness to amplify beyond the words she required hearing, because I'd neglected that the reality I attempted constructing held no value without her presence within it. That evening, following her retirement to bed, I remained alone in the stillness, the identical stillness I previously labeled concentration, but presently it resembled a space occupied by specters. Specters of unuttered regrets. Specters of overlooked instants. Specters of my apologies, specters of my recognition of you, specters of my continued selection of you. I acknowledged something agonizing, something I never desired admitting. Quietness doesn't merely create distance between individuals. It harms them. Without speaking, without opening myself, without finally revealing everything my spirit had retained, I would forfeit the most significant individual in my existence. Therefore, this evening I'm expressing myself, not for vindication, not for protection, not to rationalize the years of quietness that injured her beyond my comprehension. I'm expressing myself because I finally grasped the reality: love isn't solely constructed on instants we experience together. It's additionally demolished by declarations we never articulate, and I refuse forfeiting her to the very quietness I generated. When examining the past, truly examining it, I acknowledged something devastating. The existence we maintain presently wasn't perpetually this intricate. It wasn't perpetually burdensome or removed or tense. A period existed, a magnificent period when our unity felt uncomplicated, when loving one another didn't resemble labor, it resembled respiration. I still recall the initial days, preceding any achievement, preceding any strain, preceding the reality-possessing anticipations of me, back when merely two individuals navigated existence together. She wasn't captivated by my possessions because, truthfully, I possessed nothing. She was attracted to my identity, the visionary, the optimistic dreamer, the individual who believed possibilities were limitless because she accompanied him. We previously found amusement in matters that currently lack logic. We'd occupy the ground consuming inexpensive meals, discussing the future as though we were composing it collectively, not my future, not her future, our future. This recollection persists, a minor one, yet it accompanies me. We occupied the rain, seeking protection beneath this inadequate umbrella providing no assistance whatsoever. We were drenched, trembling, yet she observed me as though I represented the most comforting presence existing. In that instant, I comprehended home wasn't a location. Home was her. We constructed everything from inception, every aspiration, every strategy, every progressive stride. Evenings existed when the singular element sustaining me was her declaration: your capability exists. My confidence supports you. She maintained confidence in me extensively preceding anyone's recognition of my identity, extensively preceding achievement possessing form, extensively preceding my capacity to provide anything except a spirit abundant with commitments. For the most extended duration, our unity signified collaboration. It signified two spirits advancing side by side, supporting one another's anxieties, acknowledging one another's victories, maintaining the concept that love provided sufficiency. Yet somewhere throughout the progression, achievement altered everything. My intention didn't encompass this. Achievement doesn't arrive politely, it demolishes the entrance and forces you inside. Abruptly, days extend, evenings contract, consequences intensify. Every determination resembles potential construction or demolition of everything you've established. Gradually, inconspicuously, love transitions. It ceases occupying the center. It transforms into the background, not through desire, but because existence amplifies, excessively so. The extended evenings transformed into absent meals. The communications transformed into "I'll contact you subsequently." The mutual aspirations transformed into individual timetables. The unity we previously protected transformed into unity we presumed possessed sufficient strength to endure anything. Yet love doesn't endure through presumptions. It endures through attendance. It endures through concentration. It endures through all the minor elements appearing insignificant until their absence. I didn't comprehend how extensively matters had transformed until the recollections began resembling belongings of another individual. Like the couple who experienced love in the precipitation, the couple who strategized a future on a modest apartment's ground, the couple who considered love the most crucial worldly element, they resembled unfamiliar individuals occupying my personal narrative. Achievement provided everything I believed I desired, yet it removed the singular element I didn't acknowledge losing, the significance of our unity. Because our unity previously signified collaboration, presently it resembled tolerance. Previously signified mutual aspirations, presently it resembled individual obligations. Previously signified selecting one another daily, presently it resembled hoping the alternative individual comprehended your time scarcity. The reality is love doesn't vanish when existence expands. It simply becomes concealed, concealed beneath determination, beneath commotion, beneath fatigue, concealed beneath the very elements you previously considered essential for an improved future. Yet what value does an improved future possess when the individual who assisted your aspiration no longer experiences acknowledgement within it? I observe our current existence, the residence, the achievement, the ease, the accomplishments, and my exclusive consideration involves how none of this would materialize without her confidence in the modest version of me, the damaged version of me, the attempting version of me. Somewhere internally, I recognize the exclusive method to respect the existence we constructed involves fighting for the unity that initiated everything. A peculiar instant exists in existence when the element you requested gradually transforms into the element separating you from the individual you requested alongside. That's achievement sensation for me. It didn't manifest instantaneously. It arrived quietly, disguised as obligation, possibility, immediacy. It arrived presented as I'm accomplishing this for our unity. For an extended duration, I genuinely maintain that conviction, yet the reality demonstrates you can labor for your beloved while simultaneously drifting away. That's precisely what transpired. Extended evenings at manufacturing facilities existed. Evenings when I occupied the manufacturing facility more extensively than home. Evenings when the machinery, the commotion, the pressure resonated more intensely than the sound of her declaration. I'd observe the timepiece at 2 a.m., inform myself about departing in 10 moments, then abruptly sunlight emerged. I persuaded myself it represented dedication, obligation, diligent labor. What I failed to perceive was every supplementary hour I invested pursuing achievement represented an hour she invested anticipating in vacant bed with a spirit experiencing increasing neglect. She never expressed complaints. She never pleaded. She simply quietly modified her anticipations, and that quietness should have generated alarm extensively preceding its eventual effect. Subsequently the traveling commenced. Transportation terminals transformed into familiar spaces, yet her embraces transformed into rarities. Accommodation substituted home. Conferences substituted meals. Time constraints substituted weekends. I maintained stating it's fleeting, merely until matters stabilize. Yet existence never stabilizes, not during perpetual pursuit of additional accomplishments. Days existed when she'd inquire, "When does your return occur?" I'd respond with uncertainty, "Hopefully soon," yet soon transformed into subsequently. Subsequently transformed into uncertainty altogether, and she acquired the practice of ceasing inquiries, not through indifference, but because responses maintained inflicting injury. The instant I'll never neglect, the one maintaining its sting, represents the birthday I overlooked, her birthday. I convinced myself the conference possessed excessive significance, the arrangement couldn't await, she would comprehend. She did comprehend. She perpetually did. Yet comprehension differs from absence of injury. She transmitted an image of the dessert she independently obtained, a modest one, merely one flame. She declared, "It's acceptable. We'll acknowledge this when your return occurs." Yet the expression in her vision in that image, that hushed sadness she attempted concealing so intensely, accompanied me more extensively than any professional achievement ever accomplished. Because for the initial time, I acknowledged I was selecting the reality over the woman who assisted my survival within it. An evening existed, one I'll never neglect, when I entered the residence following another exhausting day. I was depleted, consumed, operating on minimal energy, and she occupied the furniture grasping a teacup in both hands as though she required something warm for grasping because nothing additional in her existence possessed warmth anymore. She raised her gaze toward me, and I witnessed something in her vision I'd been excessively blind or excessively occupied to detect previously. It wasn't fury, it wasn't annoyance, it was suffering, a profound, hushed suffering originating from loving someone no longer genuinely present anymore. She didn't inquire about my location. She didn't inquire about my tardiness. She didn't inquire about anything. She simply murmured, "Your absence affects me," and I didn't possess response knowledge because I didn't recall the final instance I'd genuinely maintained sufficient presence for her to experience my absence. In that singular instant, the reality's commotion transformed into silence, the conferences, the time constraints, the objectives, everything diminished. All I could perceive was her, the woman who loved me preceding the reality's recognition of my identity, the woman who anticipated, the woman who persisted, the woman gradually fragmenting because of the separation I generated. That's when understanding struck me. Achievement didn't remove my connection, I relinquished it incrementally, instant by instant, until she commenced experiencing isolation beside me. The suffering in her vision wasn't merely sadness, it represented a caution: without your return to our unity, no unity will persist for your return. In that instant, I finally comprehended, occupation holds importance, yet connection possesses irreplaceability, and I was forfeiting the singular individual who rendered all this significant initially. He maintained so much internally that she never witnessed, not through her distrust, but through his inability to provide articulation to the components of himself experiencing smallness, delicacy, and humanity. Externally, the reality perceived confidence, motivation, strength, a man perpetually possessing knowledge of his actions. Yet internally, he existed with hushed terror, terror murmuring to him during quiet instants, "What if your sufficiency for her doesn't exist?" He labored more extensively, exerted harder, pursued achievement with desperation he never confessed, all through terror that decelerating even momentarily would permit her perception of reality, that he wasn't as powerful, as constant, or as remarkable as her conviction. Therefore, he immersed himself in labor, informing himself about accomplishing it for their unity, while secretly suffocating in responsibility for every overlooked birthday, every absent meal, every goodnight communication transmitted rather than verbalized. He possessed knowledge of selecting occupation over residence more frequently than appropriate, and that responsibility existed profoundly within him, transforming into an ache type he never possessed vocalization knowledge for. Individuals labeled him the powerful one, the reliable one, the man capable of managing everything, and he attempted fulfilling that perception, even during exhaustion. What he never revealed to her was the isolation sensation accompanying perpetual unbreakable pretense. Because when everyone maintains conviction of your steel composition, you commence believing bending isn't permissible, crumbling isn't permissible, murmuring isn't permissible, my weariness exists. My terror exists. My knowledge of actions doesn't exist. He maintained self-composition through conviction that represented her requirement, the composed man, the tranquil man, the man perpetually possessing responses. Yet occasionally he desired receiving embrace also. Occasionally he required shoulder support. Occasionally he required someone informing him about hero perpetuity being unnecessary. He possessed insecurities he never risked verbalizing, the type maintaining wakefulness at 3 a.m. observing ceiling surfaces. He questioned everything: what if her realization of deserving superior occurs? What if my flaws receive perception? What if my love provides insufficiency through my presence insufficiency? He maintained concern that the existence he constructed was introducing her to turbulence she never requested. He maintained terror that she would eventually observe him and perceive not the man she experienced love for, but a man excessively occupied, excessively weary, excessively removed. Yet he maintained silence, not through desire against heart revelation, but through method knowledge absence. He didn't possess knowledge for informing the woman he loved that the man she maintained conviction in didn't perpetually maintain self-conviction. He didn't possess knowledge for declaring that behind every accomplishment existed a boy still maintaining terror of forfeiting the individual who generated his significant sensation. He didn't possess knowledge for confessing that occasionally he experienced weakness, overwhelming sensation, responsibility, insecurity. The tragedy involves quietness constructing barriers more rapidly than terror can demolish them. He believed he provided her protection. He believed he provided self-protection. Yet all his genuine accomplishment involved concealing the components of himself she would have experienced even greater love for. If return capability existed, he would reveal everything to her: the terror, the responsibility, the fatigue, the insecurities. He would permit her perception of his genuine self, not the flawless version he attempted maintaining with such intensity. Because love never involved flawlessness, it involved honesty, openness, recognition. The most challenging reality he finally acknowledged was this: she never required the powerful version of himself. She merely required the authentic version of himself. An instant arrives in every existence when something so minor, so ordinary, impacts you like electrical discharge and you abruptly comprehend how delicate everything genuinely exists. For me, it manifested on a hushed evening, one that should have possessed normality. She occupied the window location, gentle illumination descending on her features, and for the initial time in an extensive duration, I genuinely observed her, not the rapid glance I provided while hastening through the entrance, not the distracted observation over my communication device, but a genuine, attendant, sincere observation. What I witnessed fractured something internally. A separation existed in her vision, not fury, not bitterness, merely a weariness murmuring, "I've been anticipating your return to our unity, and my certainty of occurrence doesn't exist." That observation jolted me into awareness in a manner nothing additional ever accomplished. In that instant, time ceased experiencing infinity. It ceased experiencing like something I could extend, delay, or obtain from. Time abruptly experienced like a constricting cord, one pull from fracturing. I acknowledged how rapidly the years had advanced, how numerous recollections we never generated, how numerous instants I delayed through conviction that another opportunity would perpetually exist. I acknowledged how numerous future days I'd committed to her, how numerous occasions I'd declared, "We'll discuss subsequently. I'll compensate to you. Matters will improve soon." Standing there, observing her occupying such quietness, I finally comprehended reality. Unlimited future days don't exist. No guarantee exists. Love doesn't anticipate perpetually, and neither does existence. The terror impacted me with such intensity one could barely respire, the terror that someday I might enter this residence and her presence wouldn't exist, not through fury, not through impulse, but simply through inability to continue anticipating a man perpetually occupying alternative locations. I visualized awakening one day to locate her amusement absent, her presence departed, her warmth substituted by recollections I could no longer contact. That terror wasn't noisy. It wasn't theatrical. It was hushed, the type of hush that penetrates more profoundly than any declaration ever could, the terror of forfeiting her perpetually, the terror of acknowledging excessively late that the instants I maintained delaying were the instants she required most. That's why I'm expressing now, not tomorrow, not someday, not when matters tranquilize. Because anticipating represents what fragmented us. Anticipating represents what separated us. Anticipating represents what transformed love into quietness. I cannot anticipate anymore. I won't. This admission, these declarations, this reality I've maintained for such extension, it cannot occupy my spirit one additional day. Not when the woman I love is departing in gradual, hushed heartache. Not when I represent the explanation her vision has acquired dimming knowledge. Not when I finally comprehend that quietness's expense involves forfeiting the exclusive individual who ever resembled home. So I'm declaring this presently, preceding the reality's amplification again, preceding another time constraint removing me, preceding another year advancing like an indistinct period I barely existed within. I'm declaring it preceding excessive lateness because she warrants hearing reality while her presence for hearing still exists. She warrants recognition that she possesses greater significance than anything I ever pursued. She warrants recognition that my spirit has been summoning her identity extensively preceding my articulation ever located the courage for expression. I refuse with everything within me, to permit another unspoken day advancing her further away. This represents my instant to appear, my instant to possess honesty, my instant to combat for our unity, and I'm accepting it preceding excessive lateness. Numerous methods existed through which he loved her that she never genuinely witnessed, not through her inattention, but through his concealment of his love in hushed instants, in minor actions, in the intervals between declarations. He loved her quietly, in the method he perpetually verified her safe arrival at residence, even without her recognition, in the method he replayed her amusement in his cognition on evenings when pressure experienced heavier than his personal pulse, in the method her identity softened his fury, tranquilized his turbulence, and reminded him that existence exceeded time constraints and obligations. He loved her in his recollection of the minor elements she declared once and never again, the method she preferred her tea, the melody she activated when experiencing sadness, the method she positioned her hair behind her auditory organ when experiencing nervousness. Even during distant location, her details maintained proximity to him, like hushed anchors maintaining his spirit from drifting excessively distantly. Countless elements existed she never possessed knowledge he detected. He detected how she attempted maintaining strength even when her vision shimmered with unspoken suffering. He detected the evenings she maintained wakefulness anticipating him, pretending weariness absence, merely to acknowledge him with amusement. He detected the method she maintained self-composition for both of them, even when his detection indicated her internal fragmentation. He detected how she perpetually positioned others initially, even when it signified her personal requirements experiencing no auditory reception. The reality is, he possessed greater admiration for her strength than he ever confessed. He admired how she could love, pardon, persist, and still maintain gentleness in a reality frequently demanding her solidification. She represented a hushed bravery type, the type that doesn't declare, doesn't demand acknowledgement, but exists in the minor, gentle selections she generated every singular day. What she never comprehended was how profoundly she maintained his grounding in a reality perpetually rotating around him. Conferences, transportation, obligations, anticipations, she represented the singular constant element returning him to himself. When achievement inflated his reality, she reminded him of modesty. When pressure obscured his cognition, her attendance cleared the obscurity. When he forfeited components of himself in the disorder, she grasped the components he couldn't transport and maintained their security until he located his return path. She didn't acknowledge it, yet she represented the explanation he didn't completely forfeit himself in the commotion. She represented the hushed declaration informing him, without declaration articulation, your humanity persists. Your love reception persists. Your identity persists.